Today, we are diving into one of history's most fascinating what-if moments. It's a story that really gets to the heart of the clash between genius, power, and, well, personal principle. I mean, just think about that for a second. The most brilliant mind of a generation, a guy who grappled with the very laws of the universe, is suddenly offered the top political job in a brand new nation. Honestly, it sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? Well, it wasn't fiction. Not at all. In 1952, this exact, almost unbelievable scenario played out in real life for the man whose name is literally synonymous with genius. So, how on earth did this happen? Well, it's 1952, and the new state of Israel has just lost its very first president. They needed a new leader, a symbol of intellect and integrity for the world stage, and they had one person in mind. And this wasn't just some informal suggestion, you know? A formal official letter was delivered by Israel's ambassador. The offer was totally real. They wanted Albert Einstein to lead the country. They even promised him complete freedom to continue all his scientific work. This is where the story gets really wild. To truly get the weight of this moment, we have to rewind the clock. Because long before he was offered a presidency, Albert Einstein was a young man who couldn't even get a job. Okay, so let's go all the way back to the beginning. Far from being some kind of child prodigy, Einstein's early years were really marked by rebellion and a deep, deep dislike for the rigid education system of his time. Believe it or not, he was actually considered a slow learner. He started speaking late, and his teachers pretty much wrote him off as an average student. But it wasn't a lack of intelligence. He just flat out refused to memorize facts. He was obsessed with understanding the concepts behind everything. He hated the strict German school system so much that he eventually just dropped out and moved to the more liberal schools in Switzerland. And his entrance exam for the famous Zurich Polytechnic, it tells you everything you need to know about how his mind worked. He absolutely crushed the math and physics sections. I mean, the professor was just stunned. But all the subjects that required memorization, geology, literature, politics, he failed. Badly. Brilliant, but totally unconventional. He actually had to go back and do another year of high school before he was finally let in. So he graduates, right? A certified genius in physics and math. The academic world should have been lining up to hire him. Instead, what followed was nearly a decade of professional rejection and, honestly, despair. 9 years. For almost a full decade after graduating, Albert Einstein could not find a stable job in his field. Think about this. Out of his entire graduating class, he was the only one left without a position. Just let that sink in for a moment. So why? Why couldn't this genius get a job? Well, that same rebellious nature that made him a brilliant thinker also meant he skipped boring lectures and didn't really bother to flatter his professors. So when it came time to graduate, they refused to write him letters of recommendation, which was basically a career death sentence back then. His classmates, they all got glowing recommendations and landed good jobs, while Einstein was just left out in the cold. And this period, it took a huge personal toll on him. He felt like a total failure, writing these desperate letters to his family and his girlfriend Mileva. This quote gives you a really raw, painful look into his mindset. He was living in this world of incredible, groundbreaking ideas, but the real world, the one with jobs and rigid systems, it just had no place for him. But then, from this place of absolute rock bottom, came a breakthrough. And it didn't come from a fancy university, but from the most unlikely place you can imagine. A friend pulled some strings and helped him get a job as an examiner at the patent office in Bern, Switzerland. It was a humble government job, just looking over patent applications for new inventions. It was probably super boring, but it was a lifeline. It gave him a steady income, and, most importantly, it gave him free time. After his 9-to-5 shift was over, his mind was totally free to just wander the cosmos. And boy, did his mind wander. In a single year, 1905, while working that boring desk job, this supposedly useless man published 4 papers that completely detonated a revolution in science. These papers laid the foundation for quantum physics and totally shattered our understanding of space, time, energy, and matter. It was just this explosion of genius that shook the entire scientific world to its core. But here's the thing. Even after his miracle year, the academic world was still slow to catch on. Recognition didn't happen overnight. It still took another 4 years, a grand total of 9 years after he graduated, for him to finally land his first real job as a professor.
The long, frustrating period of rejection was finally over. Which brings us all the way back to 1952. We've seen his journey from struggling graduate to the world's most famous scientist. And now he's holding an offer to become president of a country. So what does he do?
He says no, politely, but very, very firmly. And his reasoning just showed this profound self-awareness. He wasn't tempted by the power or the prestige. He just simply explained that after a life spent dealing with objective things, the laws of physics, he just didn't have the natural skill to deal with people, and he had zero experience with official duties. In his official response, you can just feel the humility. He says he's saddened and ashamed, not because he feels he's too good for the role, but because he genuinely believes he isn't the right person for it, and that he would fail the Israeli people. It's a really remarkable admission of his own limitations. But his refusal, it went even deeper than just a simple lack of experience. It was a decision that was really rooted in a lifetime of carefully considered principles. So first, at 73, he was keenly aware of his age. But more importantly, he was terrified of just becoming a figurehead, being forced to support decisions that might go against his conscience. And it's really important to understand that while he was sympathetic to the Jewish people, he was never a passionate Zionist. Years before, he had actually said that the very idea of a state with borders and armies and all that went against his whole philosophy. And get this, here's the fascinating final twist to the story. When word of Einstein's refusal got back to Israel's Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, he wasn't disappointed. He was relieved. He apparently told an aide that if Einstein had actually said yes, his principled, idealistic, and often stubborn nature would have created huge problems for the day-to-day running of the government. In the end, Einstein knew himself better than anyone. And that brings us right to the heart of the Einstein paradox. Here was a man who literally reshaped our understanding of the universe. He definitely changed the world. But his refusal suggests that for him, real power wasn't about commanding a nation. It was about having the wisdom and the integrity to command himself. And it really leaves us to wonder, which one of those is truly the greater power?